He says, but you, be strong. Don't let your hands be weak. I find that interesting because what he's saying in that is he's saying, don't only be strong in your attitude, be strong in your actions. Hands speak about doing things. You do things with your hands. Don't let your hands get weak. Don't let your actions get weak. Don't just get into this mentality of, well, yeah, I'm a Christian. Yeah, I said a prayer 20 years ago. And I believe in Jesus Christ. Sure. But I live my life the way I think I ought to. That's not following Jesus. That's not following Jesus. So in verses 8 through 18, we won't read through it, but basically they have a giant Pentecost celebration. And there's great devotion to the Lord. And the people from the northern kingdom start coming down and going, man, God's with these people. We don't want to stay up here. We want to go down there. And this is where he even deposes his grandmother from being queen because she built this idol and was worshiping it. There's a second reform, a giant reform. But then, pick it up in chapter 15 of 2 Chronicles, the very last verse, 19. And there was no war until the 35th year of the reign of Asa. Now, I need to tell you something here to understand timing. I told you timing would be important. In the Hebrew, what this literally says is there was no war until the 35th year and the reign of Asa. This is not talking about the 35th year of Asa's reign. This is talking about the 35th year after the separation of the kingdoms, which happened to be during Asa's reign. It's important because when you line up the different kings and so forth, otherwise we would have them fighting a king who died 10 years before, which, why fight a king that's already dead? So it's the same way in verse 1 of chapter 16. In the 36th year of the reign of Asa, Baasha, king of Israel, came up against Judah and built Ramah, that he might let no one go out or come in to Asa, king of Judah. Now, we read about that in 1 Kings, where that happened, and then, Asa got into this covenant with Syria. Now get the picture here. 15 years into his reign, a 1,000,000-man army comes up from the south. He calls on God, Lord, you could take care of these people, with all of us or just with one of us. It's up to you. And he takes care of them. Bam. Awesome. Prophet comes. Asa, the Lord's with you, man. They have this big giant celebration. Honoring God. Restoring temple worship. Clearing out all this stuff in Jerusalem and in the surrounding areas. And then, the same year that the Pentecost celebration takes place, that takes place like May, June. That same year, he gets attacked from the north. Not actually attacked, but Israel starts building up fortifications and basically clearing them out. Probably because all these people were coming down now and going, hey, we want to follow these guys now. And the king of the northern kingdom is going, I don't like this. My people are defecting. I'm going to take care of this. So he starts building a stronghold to the north. And the king sees that he's threatened from the north now. But this time, he does something different. He doesn't call on God. It's a much smaller army. Israel did not have a 1,000,000-man army. They did not have chariots that we know of by that time. It's less of a problem, and yet his response is not to call on God, but his response is to go hire his enemy and pay his enemy to fight against Israel and take care of it for him. I have no idea why he did it that way. I really don't. I've been thinking about this and going, why would you do that? I used to think, well, there must have been a long period of time, and now he was old and just kind of forgetful or, whatever. No, we're talking about within a year of the whole 1,000,000-man army episode, and within just a few months of this prophet saying, man, God's with you through this, can you see? And now he ignores God. Now he's going to take care of it himself. He's got his own plan. This is Asa's mistake. This is Asa's mistake. basically he sells out. Take a look at verse 2 now. Asa brought silver and gold from the treasuries of the house of the Lord. This isn't even his own money. He's taking it out of the temple. And he's paying off Syria to come and fight with Israel, which they do. Now look at verse 7. And at that time, Hanani the seer came to Asa, king of Judah, and said to him, because you've relied on the king of Syria and not relied on the Lord your God, therefore the army of the king of Syria has escaped from your hand. Hey, look, if it would have been Israel and Syria coming against you, I'd have taken care of them both. And then you wouldn't have to deal with Syria as an enemy in the future, which they did. And Syria came against them in later years because they weren't taken care of. He says, I would have done that for you. Were the Ethiopians and the Lubim not a huge army with many chariots and horsemen? Yet because you relied on the Lord, he delivered them into your hand. For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth to show himself strong on behalf of those whose heart is loyal to him. In this you have done foolishly. Therefore from now on you shall have wars. Then Asa was angry with the seer and put him in prison. For he was enraged at him because of this, and Asa oppressed some of the people at that time. And then it goes on to tell us about the fact that late in his years, like 25 years later, he started getting a disease in his feet. And again, instead of calling on the Lord, he goes to a doctor. Now, this isn't saying don't go to a doctor if you're sick. But first you should go to the big doctor. You know, get him involved. Get him consulting with your surgeon and with everybody else. Right? So, kind of interesting stories. Maybe I'm a history buff, so I like this stuff. But so what? What can we learn from this? What does this mean? Well, I'm going to leave you with a couple of thoughts, lessons from Asa. And one of the things I see in Asa that, you know, it says, if you look at 2 Chronicles 15:17, look at what it says there. It says, this is when he was taking care of all the idols and stuff and cleaning stuff up. It says, the high places were not removed from Israel. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa was loyal all his days. Okay? But then, he doesn't call on the Lord when he's got Israel coming after him. And the prophet who comes to talk to him says, hey, look, the eyes of the Lord are looking to and fro for anyone whose heart is loyal towards him. And I looked in the Hebrew, it's the exact same words. Complete, friendly. And it says, you know, he's looking so he can show himself strong on their behalf. He was looking for you, Asa. He was looking for you to see if your heart was loyal, and he would have shown himself strong. So how could Asa be loyal all the days of his life, and yet in this instance he obviously wasn't? Well, I think he fell into something that we fall into sometimes. Asa was willing to follow the Lord and no other God. That's where it talks about, hey, he was loyal all the days of his life in that he took care of other idols. He was following God. That's it, Yahweh. I'm not going after Baal. I'm not going after the Asherah. I'm not going after all these other guys. I'm following God. He was loyal in that way. But he wasn't willing to fully depend on God. He picked and he chose where he was going to depend on God for his strength and for his direction. And he picked the big one. Hey, there's 1 million people coming after me. You know, that's often when people, you know, really turn to God. Man, I just lost my job. My house has been taken away from me. My car's, you know, been repossessed. Man, I better start going to church again. They begin to seek God again because of this. And Asa, 1 million people? Yeah, I'm calling on God. But it's just Israel? I can take care of that.